Christopher Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Brady down the left and Moy stayed onside. Here's Mounier! 2-0 Huddersfield Town on the opening day of the Premier League. 1-2 wicket Tunga. Here's Moy, right-footed. 1-0 Huddersfield Town. Lindelof misses his header. De Quattro's in. Round De Gea. 2-0 Huddersfield Town. 2-0 Huddersfield Town. Here's Zanka to turn it into the pass. Yes! And Tommins scored. Tommins has scored one of the most important goals of Huddersfield Town's history. De Quattro's forward. De Quattro's got the better. Yes! And Laurent De Quattro scores. Laurent De Quattro scores.
Now we're going to Luton Town away, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the warm-up, episode 43. Following the midweek heroics at home, Huddersfield are off to the Hatters this weekend to take on Luton Town. Will Town cap off the week with another win, or will we be saying hats off to the home side? Joining me, your host Brady Frost, to preview Town's latest match, is someone who you can hang your hat on as being a guest on the warm-up. It's Mr. James Whittaker. James, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm disappointed I forgot to wear my hat for this, but yeah, hopefully everyone can get over it.
Well, I'm sure they will. Joining James and I is someone who's thrown their hat into the ring with their first appearance on this podcast. It's Mr. Joe Scott. How are you, Joe?
Yeah, very, very happy to be on. Very excited and enjoying the puns right off the bat as well. That's great.
Well, you can come on again, mate, if you're enjoying it, by all means.
Should have prepared some.
So, Joe, obviously people won't know this about you, but you're living in Amsterdam, so you're following Town as much as you can from overseas.
Yeah, using iFollow week in week out. Yeah.
So proper fan if you're having to use iFollow every week, because we moaned about it enough, didn't we, James? And we were not too far from the ground, so I think the commitment's there, mate.
Yeah, I found that funny when everyone was whinging about that, because it's just what I've had to deal with for the last 3 or 4 years living abroad. I was back over the last few weeks and actually managed to see us win live for the first time in a few years, so that was nice.
And you got to see us lose, so you got the best, you got everything.
Yeah, got to see us lose. Absolutely awful performance, yeah.
The authentic experience, isn't it?
Yeah. It was too much to ask that for now, wasn't it, really?
Exactly. So lads, before we get into the bit of analysis, Josh isn't here this week, so I'm in charge of Trash Talk, and it's time for Trash Talk.
Oh, just settle it down, play on. Can we settle it down? What's your excuse there? No excuse at all, no.
Okay, so I'm the Trash Talk master. So, Joe, I'll explain the rules, and just for anyone who doesn't know, I'm going to ask you a question, and you're going to tell me, for example, how many players you can name. Then James can either go higher or call you out if you're talking trash. So you can also, if you said like 5, James could say 6. You could then say 7. I'll be like, you're talking trash, James. So I thought I'd give you the opening bid, Joe, because technically you're unseeded with this being your first time. So the question is, so one of the worst games during lockdown was the 2-0 home defeat to Luton in 2020. I think we all watched that. A game described as bitterly disappointed by manager at the time, Danny Cowley. So, Joe, I'm kind of rambling, but the question is, how many players, how many of Town's players from the starting 11 do you think you can name? And you don't need to tell me the players just yet. I just need an opening bid in terms of numbers.
I'll go for 9. I'll go for
9. Oh, that's a strong opening bid. James, can you do more than 9? Can you do 10?
You get to don't you? Again, even if you get one wrong, you're not out, are you?
No.
I
It's
could
in
probably-
30 seconds, by the way.
I
Sorry,
could
I should have
probably
said.
do. I think I would back myself to do 10.
All right, are you going for 10 then?
Yes. Yeah.
Joe, can you do 11, or is James talking trash?
I'm trying to have a quick whiz through in my mind now, but I think I'd end up falling one short. I'll let James go.
So James is talking trash.
Yeah, James is talking trash.
Okay, right. So James, you're going to have 30 seconds to name 10 of the starting 11 from that game against Luton in 2020. So are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, the timer starts now. Go.
Lossell, Chalabar, Schindler, Stearman, Toffolo, O'Brien, Hogg, Willock, Smith-Rowe, Kachunga, Mounier, Campbell. That's it.
Time. So did you said Stearman? Stearman wasn't in the starting 11.
All right.
Kachunga was on the bench. Did you say Stank? You didn't say Stankovic, did you?
I didn't. No,
did you say Grant?
I forgot Grant. I nearly swore then. I forgot Grant. I swear or not. I can't believe I forgot top scorer.
So I only got 9 for that. So I got Lossell, Chalabar, Schindler, Toffolo, O'Brien, Hogg, Willock, Smith-Rowe, and Campbell. You didn't name Grant, mate. Come on. Oh, you
took it for granted. I took it for granted.
I think you don't win purely for that terrible pun, and that's coming from me. Anyway, well, that was a good effort, lads. I think, Joe, you played that well. That's a good opening performance. Went high, backed him into a corner.
Yeah.
To be fair, it would have been a bit mad if you can't name more than 11, can you? So I'm glad it didn't go any higher.
Love it. Well, no, I enjoyed that. It's nice to actually host it. I can see why Josh enjoys it rather than me struggling. So I will move on. We'll talk a little bit about Luton. So we're recording this after they've just won 5-0 last night. So they're 9th in the league, and we're kind of 10 matches in, and they've won 3, lost 3, and drawn 4. Nice symmetry going on there. The win last night, the 5-0 win against Coventry, was actually their first win in 7 matches. So they weren't on a great run, and Coventry, ironically, were on a good run before that game. So the championship, ladies and gentlemen. I just had a quick look. I'll come to you, lads, for a bit of the stats, but they've scored 18 goals so far in the league. Obviously, quite a few coming last night. But interestingly, the majority of their goals have come in the last half an hour of games. So again, we've seen before with Town, particularly away from home, when they score, it's kind of in the second half after not the best first half performance. So could be an interesting one. Something I saw as well, lads, Town have never actually won against Luton in the championship since both teams came back into it in 2019. So even though Town and Luton, I saw, were the teams with the highest XG in midweek, it's not really been high scoring games. So Joe, I'll come to you first. Obviously they've just won 5-0 last night, but looks like it's a bit of a tricky contest on paper, doesn't it?
Yeah, I didn't realise. Well, I suppose thinking back, we haven't beaten them, but yeah. I mean, I'm always a bit positive with things like that. I think odds are we're bound to get a win against them eventually. But yeah, just coming off a 5-0, I'm not too confident of that really away from home. I'd definitely probably take a draw if it was offered to me right now. And I know we've said recently about Town wanting to start fast, and we'd managed to do that against Blackburn and get in the face. But after they've just come off a 5-0, I'd take a very steady and slow start to the match. Yeah, that's what I reckon.
Keep it tight. No, I think that's
keep
a good
it
shout.
tight, exactly.
Yeah, the old classic. James, what about you? How are you seeing this matchup? The Hatters against the Terrors?
I think that from what I can see, then of like an old-fashioned sort of British footballing team, and that they work really hard. They play sort of high press, quite intense. Play a lot of long balls, so they've got quite a low passing accuracy because they are playing the long balls, and they've got the highest tackling, interception, and foul stats in the championship. So I think it suggests it'll be quite a scrappy game, really, and we could do with a couple of sort of warriors in midfield. So I think it's a bit of a shame that, I know we might come on to it, but Hogg's likely at this point to miss it. So yeah, I think that I feel like there's a bit of needle mainly from their side because of the Luton Town away chant. So I almost feel like we've unintentionally shot ourselves in the foot with that chant, because we've never get anything at Luton Town away now since that chant's come out. I think that they just kind of like the old sort of newspaper up in the dressing room type thing. It kind of seems to, maybe it's just a general vibe I'm getting, but it just seems to get them going, and that definitely seems to get their fans going a bit, even though I don't really think that was the point of the chant. But yeah, that's just the sort of general vibe I get. I feel like every time we've been there, like you said, Brady, since we've both been back in the championship, it's been a bit of a disaster, really. And the one that sticks in my mind was Van La Parra coming off at half time to go and join Red Star Belgrade. So
wasn't it like his next game was like Bayern Munich in the Champions League?
Bayern Munich in the Champions League, which I watched in Belgrade actually, which was really weird. I just watched I just watched him play against Luton Town, and then he played against Bayern Munich. No offense, Luton fans, again, don't get annoyed by that as well. So yeah, I think, as I say, I think it'll be a really scrappy game. I think that obviously they've got goals in the side. It's obvious to say, but I think they are quite an intense team to play, and there's going to be a high ball turnover as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. Interestingly as well, there's always something when we play Luton. I don't know if you guys remember, I think it was the 1-1 draw, but it was when Lee Bromby was on co-coms on iFollow, and he was criticising some of the players delivering crosses, and it obviously him being the kind of in charge of recruitment, it was a bit of an odd comment to make. So there's always something when we play Luton. But I'll come to you, Joe. Luton have quite a few good players. James is right, they're a bit it's very much about the team, but they do have good players as well. Was there anyone you singled out from Luton ahead of this game?
Yeah, I picked out the striker Elijah Adebayo, who we were meant to be in for in January as well. There's a bit of me that's scared of him for that reason. We missed out, therefore, not that he's out against Town, but just that he's obviously more likely to score against us if we were interested in him. And he's scored 4 in his last 3 as well, so he's obviously in a bit of form, but I think he fits into that Luton team really well, and they're good at what they do, like James said, like long ball stuff, being quite direct and physical, and he's obviously a big lad, and he'll definitely bounce our centre-backs around. So yeah, he's the one that I'm worried for form, and he fits into their style well. So something to be a bit wary of, I think.
I think that's great. And what was it, 450k they paid for him?
Yeah,
let's not dwell on it. Let's not dwell on it. Let's not dwell on it. James, what about you? Who did you single out from the Hatters? I keep saying the Hatters because it's such a weird nickname, but I mean,
it's a good nickname. It's a good nickname. It's an industrial nickname.
I was going to say, does anyone know where it came from? Or
I can only assume it's like they made hats there,
like a bit like the cobblers and
the Potters. Yeah, the Potters at Stoke, or the Toffees at Everton, which I always like those names. I don't know why. It's just a nice little quirk, isn't it? But I've gone for goalkeeper Simon Sluga. So he's one of their record signings when they brought him in a few years ago for 1.5 million. He's won the Croatian League with Rijeka and played in the Champions League. So he was a bit of a coup for them, I think. I think the manager actually said something slightly derogatory about how they're like bigger than Rijeka, which I don't know how well that'll have gone down in Croatia. But he spent time in Juve's youth setup and went to Euro 2020 with Croatia. He's been capped at youth level and as a full international as well. I think he initially struggled to adapt to the Championship, and then's recovered quite well. 13 clean sheets last season and 4 so far this season, which is not bad really, given that Luton have got a fairly low sort of wage bill, and as the manager was saying in the interview last night, there's sort of limits as to, he's even admitted himself, like there's limits to sort of how far they can go really. And so I think he's definitely like quite a big player for them with that price tag. And I think they do seem to be, although they've got, as we've said, they've got a lot going forward as well. I think that he's quite a key part of keeping the goals out the other end as well.
Yeah, and it's a good player to pick because we've got our own informed striker, Joe, Danny Ward, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But
as of the last 90 minutes, he's banging form,
well, we can only judge him on the last game. That's what I say. I'm surprised you lads didn't pick my choice. I thought it was kind of a bit of an obvious one, but I've gone for Harry Kornick. So I think he's scored against us a couple of times, and he always looks a bit of a menace whenever I've seen him play against Town. I must admit, I don't watch Luton every week, but he got 2 goals and 2 assists last night. And he's quite versatile. So he can play in a 2 with Adebayo. I think they've done that some games away from home, but he's also on the right in a 4-3-3. So a bit of a tricky player. Maybe not the biggest name they've had, but he tends to Luton have been in the league for 3 seasons now, and he tends to get over 10 goals and assists combined so far, and he's on track to do that, maybe even have a better season this season. So I think he's one to watch. But we can stop talking about Luton. We'll talk about Town, because I'm the only one not wearing a Town shirt, but we're clearly Town supporters here. So let's start talking about them. Just before I ask you about your key player for Town, Joe, I'm just going to say we didn't record a warm-up for Blackburn. I didn't get a chance to go to the game, and they won. So I'm just going to stop going to Town games, because I've not been to that game and the Reading game, and we've both scored over 3 goals in both. So I'll do us all a favour and not go to games. But anyway, Joe, who are you picked out for Town as a key player in this?
So it kind of depends on who starts in midfield, whether Hoggy's fit or whether Vallejo's fit and he starts. But I think whoever's in that role is going to be the key player, because whilst there might be a few balls sailing over the top of them, I think we need someone really solid in there just to own the match and get on the ball. That's I was going to come on to it a bit later and mention it, but I think I would stick with Vallejo if he's fit to start this one, just because I think he's always there for a tackle. He always seems to be there for an interception. He's quite good defensively, but when he's on the ball and moving forward, he's got a bit of class with his passing. Not to take anything away from Hoggy, but I think it was noticeable in that Blackburn game that Vallejo was playing, and when he was on the ball, you could really tell. So, assuming he's fit again and he starts, then I'd pick out him as the key man for us.
No, I think that's a great shout, and we all like Hoggy on this podcast, but I think we all know as well that he's getting on, and he always has like niggles. Like, obviously, I don't think it was his hip that ruled him out of the Blackburn game, but he's always had a bit of an issue with his hip. So it's good that we have a player like Vallejo to come in, and like you say, if he's performing, he deserves to keep his place. So I think that's a really good shout, Joe. What about you, James? Who have you gone for?
I really like that choice, but I've gone with Daniel Sinani. Now, I don't know if it's a funny one, because Carlos does seem to want to start him if he's fully at it. I think that he may not start this one, given I think it might, it seems like it's going to be a bit of a scrappy game. But even off the bench, I think that he's got that kind of wild card quality to him, with a bit of a sort of class touch, really. I think that against Blackburn, I think I put in the chat that we've got, I think that 1 minute he'll do something a bit bizarre, and you can't kind of make your mind up, and the next minute he'll just do something and you think, wow, he's kind of above our level even. So I think it's just getting that consistency out of him, and I think that as well he needs a goal. I think he just needs one to hit the back of the net. Really, he's had decent chances now. There was one against Blackburn that he put over, and there was another one as well. Trying to think, was it Everton? I think.
Everton,
yeah. So he has he's got an XG of 1, so he should have scored by now, and he's due one. So hopefully he can get one. I also think that there's a lot of sort of discussion about a creative midfielder, but I think that he can be that, and I think that he is that for now at least. And I think we could do a lot worse really in that respect. And I think he maybe has sort of flown under the radar a little bit just because of how well some others have done, including Sorba Thomas. Especially since like his set pieces have been really good as well. Those ones that were sort of in swinging on Tuesday night, and him and Sorba sort of stood over him against Blackburn, so the opposition didn't really know whether he was going to swing in or swing out, and seemed to work really well. The set piece seemed to be back on point. So yeah, and he even seems to be able to put a tackle in and an interception as well. So he can play as more of a sort of midfielder as well. So yeah, I'm back in Town's resident Balkan to come up with the goods.
Lovely. Shocking that from you. Wouldn't expect that. Yeah, well, you touched on my player. Again, probably a bit of a tap in as well, but we can talk about analysis. We've talked about XG. I know I've talked about that. But sometimes a player's in a good run of form, and like, not that you can predict it, and I'll probably have a shocker now that I've said this, but I just feel like this is really Sorba Thomas's week. Obviously, he's got the call up to the Wales squad, which he's delighted about. He played really well. That cross he put in for Danny Ward to nod home was, as Michael Heffler would say, delicious. If you're a striker, that's what you want. I just kind of feel like it's the international break after this game, and he's going to go away, and I just have a feeling Sorba's going to be on it because he'll want to do as much as he can before he goes and joins up with Wales, to stake his claim, because he's, people are saying he's like technically replaced Gareth Bale from the Wales team. So we will see. But, we know how we've done it to death, and I'm more than happy to keep talking about how good he's been. It's been so good this season. And yeah, I just have a feeling this is going to be his, another one of his games, and long may it continue, is what I'd say. But anyway, we will move on because it's time for the view from the other side.
We're sorry, your call cannot be
Hello, no one is available to take your call. Please leave a message after the tone.
What on earth? We've lost to a pub side. We've literally lost to a pub side.
Yep, so that jingle means we are speaking to a fan from the opposite team. So earlier I caught up with Kev from the Luton Town Supporters Trust ahead of the game. Here's what he had to say. Hi Kev, thanks for joining me. So my first question is, how have you viewed Luton's season so far? Is it what you expected?
Our season's been a little bit up and down, I think it's fair to say. 3 wins, 4 draws, and 3 defeats. So I think that's fair to say it's up and down. Probably is what I expected. We've had an awful lot of injuries at the start of the season, which haven't helped get a settled squad out. Slowly but surely, players are starting to come back. One thing that has met my expectations, though, is the entertainment that we've played with. I think the summer signings were all designed to play a much more attacking, entertaining style of football, which is what Nathan Jones is known for, as opposed to last season when there were no crowds and we kind of got away with a bit more of a defensive attitude. There's none of that now. We're definitely a front foot side, and we look so much better for it, and hopefully that remains the case for a long while to come.
Nathan Jones's relationship with Luton Town, from the outside it seems like a perfect fit for the manager and the club, but what are your thoughts on the manager?
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. Nathan Jones and Luton Town are just a perfect fit. He works so hard, he recruits players that fit his style. He does presentations to players when they arrive that makes them want to embed into everything that he does, and you can tell that out on the pitch actually. They're all together. I mean, even even when we're behind, like earlier in the season, we were 3-0 down at West Brom. We dug in, got it back to 3-2, nearly equalised. And we were 2-0 down to Blackburn, got that back to 2-2. So the character of the players is kind of mirrored with his character, really. It was unfortunate what happened when he went to Stoke, but I think he pretty quickly realised that he shouldn't have done it. There was only one person who was going to keep us up that first season in the Championship. We were doomed when the pandemic hit. Don't think anyone would tell you otherwise. Yes, we were starting to come into a little bit of form, but you know, if there hadn't been the pandemic, I don't think we'd have stayed in the Championship. He answered our call. He kept us up. He performed miracles, really, to keep us up. And then to get us into the top half last season, he probably performed miracles again. He's recruited really well in the summer, and there's just signs that, you know, we're ready to go through the gears under him again. He's sort of getting his confidence back, having been a little bit nervy when he first came back, understandably. And everything seems to be going in the right direction under him. You certainly can't criticise him as a Luton manager. What he's done has been fantastic, and long may it continue.
So what can we expect from this Luton team on the pitch?
I think you can expect an entertaining side, a side that's on the front foot. We press really high, we press aggressively, you know, not just ones and twos. We press in sort of groups of 4s and 5s. Strong at the back, probably going to play a 3 at the back. You would think the confidence is going to be sky high after the 5-0 win against Coventry on Wednesday night, which didn't flatter us in any way, shape or form. We were probably good value for even more, actually. If you look at the chances that we've created this season, I think we're sitting in the top 3 of the XG table. So, you know, we've had a pretty difficult start. We've played the 3 losing playoff sides and 2 of the 3 relegated sides. So, you know, it hasn't been an easy start, but we're creating lots and lots of chances, even though we've got a fair few injuries. So yeah, I think you can definitely look for a side that's going to try and press Huddersfield, their defence. We're going to try and play in the Huddersfield half, and you know, at home we're always a pretty tasty side. So you know, I would imagine you're going to get lots of pace, lots of flair, and hopefully, from a Luton point of view, lots of Luton goals.
Are there any players that we need to keep an eye out for on Saturday?
Yeah, I think we've spoken before about Elijah Adebayo, haven't we? How close he was to signing to Huddersfield, and then he came to us. He's on fire. 2 goals on Wednesday night, 2 goals in the home game prior to that, and he's just a real threat. But really, I mean, looking away from him, a couple of players to look out for. Harry Kornick's on fire this season. He only scored once last season, but he's already got 4, including 2 on Wednesday night. And Luke Berry's come back from injury. In really, really good form. He scored 4 goals in, 5 games, but 2 of those games he's only played half an hour and an hour, so you could effectively call it 4 in 4 games. Berry's got this knack of arriving late into the box, a little bit like Frank Lampard kind of did. So poor man's sort of Frank Lampard, and he's a very good finisher. Whereas Kornick probably going to drift out wide onto the Huddersfield left back and look to expose him. And we do get men in the box, so if Kornick can put some decent balls over, that's probably our best chance and the biggest threat that Huddersfield need to contain.
How are Luton fans feeling about this match?
Yeah, I think Luton fans are confident about the game on Saturday. I think most Luton fans are generally confident when we're at home. We're a pretty good side at Kenilworth Road. We're probably even more better under the floodlights, so you've probably done well to get us on a Saturday, because we are really, really good under the floodlights. The place kind of comes alive then. But it's pretty much alive all the time, particularly, obviously, with fans not being there for the whole of last season. You know, Luton fans are still at that kind of fever pitch atmosphere, so the atmosphere will definitely be good. You know, I think we have to respect Huddersfield. You're above us in the league table, so you've obviously started more consistently than what we have. But, you know, we've taken on the likes of West Brom, Bournemouth, Swansea, who haven't been as great, obviously Blackburn, who are flying high, and 1 or 2 others, and we've not really looked out of place. So yeah, I think we're confident in every game we go into, especially at home. So I would imagine even more so after Wednesday night's result, that most Luton fans are going to be confident that we can get a victory, assuming that the players have recovered in that short space of time.
What are you expecting from the game against Huddersfield?
Yeah, I'm expecting a decent game of football. We're going to try and get the ball down, try and get it into our attacking players, and look to work from there. And, you know, I've seen little bits of Huddersfield over the last season and a bit, and obviously the style's changed from the Premier League days into the Championship, where they're more of a footballing side, so that should make for a much better game to watch. I just think, you know, overall it's going to be two sides that like to knock the ball around. get the ball into their forwards and go well. Obviously, from a Luton point of view, we've got Matty Pearson coming back, haven't we, for the first time since he left, so he's going to get a great reception. That's something for us to look forward to. We really always cherish players that have served us well with distinction, and Pearson definitely did that, so he's sure for a good welcome. But hopefully, whilst he gets a good welcome, he leaves with 0 points as opposed to the 3 points we always wanted him to leave with when he was our player.
And finally, Kev, how do you see the game going, and what's your score prediction?
I think there'll be goals in the game. I said before the season started, when I saw our recruitment, I don't think we're going to be involved in too many boring games, and as it is, I think the only game that we've had that was really low scoring was the home game against Sheffield United, and there were chances galore in that one. It just wouldn't go in the back of the net. So I think we're going to get goals. Kenilworth Road has got to be one of the most goals seen this season in terms of both sides. So I could see both teams scoring, but I think we're gonna win. I think we're on the crest of a wave at the minute. We're playing really well at home, so maybe 3-1 Luton, something like that. Obviously, we played on Wednesday night. I don't think it's going to be quite as emphatic as it was then, but if Huddersfield score, I think we're good for 2 or 3 goals. So 2-1, 3-1.
Okay, lovely stuff. So Josh isn't here this week. We'd normally do it back in time, but we did talk a little bit about the Luton 2-0 defeat. 2-0 loss when Danny Cowley was in charge. We can talk about it quickly. Lads, do you remember much from that game? I suppose you don't really want to talk about it. It wasn't one to be too happy with, was it?
No, I kind of erased a lot of that from my memory. I just remember being incredibly disappointed because you obviously, again, no offence to Luton, but you see them as your opposition and you think, yeah, come on, we can have this. We should be winning this. And we're just disappointed. I seem to remember we didn't really do much at all in that game very well. So yeah, pretty bad memories, and I hope we change that sort of run against them on Saturday.
Yeah. Go on, James. Looks like you're wanting to talk about this painful memory that I brought up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, same really. I think it was. I remember there was a couple of games like that were just really poor after sort of lockdown games, which are very, very strange in themselves, really. If we're on about the same one, we could be on about the Van der Power one because they were both very poor. I think that as there is that kind of tendency with Luton. Maybe we had it a little bit when we first came up to the Championship, but it's like every team sort of thinks, yeah, we should be beating them. And I think like they've almost seemed to have played on that, and they've obviously done really well. The only other memory I have of Huddersfield versus Luton Town was when Luke Beckett scored in the 95th minute against them, where we didn't play great. That was like 2005, and I think Luke Beckett's legs, I don't know, had gone. I don't know how old he was, but his legs had gone, and I'm not even sure he was like 30. But it was. It was a little tapping, I seem to remember, and I remember that's one game that sticks out. Other than the more recent ones between us and Luton.
Was that Luton 2-0 when we had West Brom after and we pulled a result out of the bag? Am I remembering that right?
Was that the next game? I think it might have been. What the one I was talking about, not the
not the Luke Beckett one.
The Smith Rowe winner.
Because I remember after that Luton one thinking, oh, we're in proper trouble here. Of going down, and then Town being Town, we pulled out a win against West Brom, who are absolutely flying.
I remember Charlie Austin crying, which I know Town fans would love, and then they went up anyway, which I thought was even funny. Like he's crying at Huddersfield, and then they still go up anyway. Yeah. We all know we're not a big fan of Charlie Austin here, so I'm really looking forward to when we play QPR and he scores against us, because that's just going to happen, isn't it?
That's what, mate. Austin's crying.
Yeah. Cheers, son.
Cheers, son. Son's crying now.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm excited for this because we're moving on to my favourite section. It's time for Return to the Mac.
Christopher Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend.
De Poitras's got the better. Yeah! And Laurent De Poitras scored! What a goal, Aaron Moy! An absolute
to dinner. So, Joe, I'm going to let you go first because you know the score. For this one-off game against Luton, you can bring back a former town great. Well, I'd assume you'd pick a town great rather than someone crap, but who knows? Who are you picking for this game? Who are you bringing back?
Yeah, I thought about this and I thought very quickly, and then I couldn't think of anyone else. I'm going for Peter Clark. To be honest, in any situation, I still hold him up really highly. Like, I absolutely love him. But I think for this sort of game, he's exactly who you want. If a striker's gonna if a striker's gonna back into him and give him a rough day, he'll give it back so much worse. I think he'd be someone you'd absolutely want in centre back for this match. So I'd go for him. But having said that, I am confident that Matty Pearson will step up and do that, especially against his former club. I think he's got signs of that sort of Peter Clark. So yeah, I think Matty Pearson will step up and do that. But for the sake of this little section, I'll go Peter Clark. Couldn't think of anyone better to have in there.
I love that shout. I agree Pearson might stand up to it, but I know exactly what I mean. You'd love Peter Clark being there because, like you said, give it back.
Yeah, give it back so much worse.
James, what about you? Have you gone for a battling defender as well, or?
Slightly different, but along the same. I think that I've gone for. I think it needed to be a midfielder for me, just because of the injury problems we've had with Hogg and Vallejo, and I've gone for someone who I think complement O'Brien a bit. He came down towards the end of his career. I'll say what it is before I continue, but yeah, it's Kevin Gunn. So he came down towards the end of his career. He had that one season on loan where I thought he played pretty well in centre midfield as part of that unbeaten run that we went on. Again, like his legs had gone a little bit, but he just kind of came in and sprayed a few passes around and sort of showed his quality. Really, obviously, he was really reliable player for David Moyes in that form in Everton's team, and he's actually the fourth most capped Irish player of all time. So he's kind of like Mr. Reliable, really. I think Town could do with a sort of experienced head to put some tackles in and sort of mop up while injured. And yeah, I just thought he was a quality player at that level, really, at that time for us. So I think that if I do get to play him in the middle with O'Brien, then it sort of gives O'Brien the freedom to press forward and get in that space and attack a bit more, and Kilbank can just sort of drop off and play his passes and do his stuff, really. So yeah, that's my choice.
Yeah,
nice.
That's a good shout. I really like Kilbank at Town, actually.
Yeah,
I really like him.
Yeah, not like the most sexy.
No.
Return to the Mac ever, but
well, I think this says a lot about how we view Town, because you've gone Peter Clark and Kevin Kilban, and I've gone for Izzy Brown, just because he was so good when he joined us on loan, and I've always wanted him back. I know he's at Preston now and he's injured. It sounds like his career's not turning out, but I do think if we're not on it for set pieces, we don't really, like, if Sorba's not having his best day, we do really struggle to create still. And I just think, I know it's going to be a bit of a rough game, but that's where you have your Pearsons and I did the classic cliches of pluralising them, but when you have Matty Pearson, if Hogg plays, I mean, like you say, if he doesn't, Vallejo can tackle. Lewis is not afraid to get stuck in either. And I just wonder, I just think I'd love to play Izzy Brown in this team. And when we go for it, I just think, Koroma, Thomas and Sinani and Brown, and then if Wardy's going to start coming into form, I think that's exciting in my opinion. But we will see. I hope Peter Clark wins. Not that I meant to show favouritism, but we will see, because Twitter anyway. We will now move on. It's time for You're the Boss. So Joe, we'll come to you first again. First question, ask it to all the guests. You're in charge, but if you're in the dugout, what's your managerial get-up? How are you dressing?
I'm going nowhere near a suit and tie, to be honest. I'm going full tracksuit, definitely full tracksuit. look like you're getting involved. I think that's the way to do it. I saw Steven Gerrard the other day in a full suit and tie, and I just thought he looked a bit stupid, to be honest. I think you got to get a track.
Does it with some players?
No, it's really
yeah. I think even like the boots as well. Like go for boots, just wear to avoid like the kind of Mourinho / Peter Jackson risk of running down the touchline and falling over. You've got to have your solid boots in there.
And they've got to be Predators or Mondials.
And tucked in to your trackies, like really obviously in that big sort of big bulge. As if you could just run on if you wanted to. Just there's always that threat hanging there.
Do you not think like managers wearing boots though? I mean, I get tracksuit, but do you not think boots is a bit like, I want to play?
You don't really see it very often, but I do like it. I really like it. I'm trying to think of an example now, but
maybe more of like a Sunday league kind of or lower league thing, isn't it? To have the boots on as well, but. I don't know. I like it for practical reasons as well. You don't want to get mud all over your nice sort of Italian shoes.
Yeah.
That's what's really come to. I suppose it depends what boots it is. Like you said, Monday Owls. I'm assuming they're black. Like it's not like you're going to be wearing like pink boots. I think that's when you.
That would be unacceptable.
Like mercurial vapors.
I think this says a lot about our town supporting. You know, we like the flair players, but like don't wear the fancy boots. Come on.
I don't even know if people if mercurial vapors has been a thing since like 2005 either. I have no idea. I'm so behind on boots.
Yes, they're the last ones I remember.
We still got Predators.
I think Adidas still make boots, isn't that correct? Anyway, Joe, how would you line up town for this game? I feel like we're getting really sidetracked here.
Actually, kind of boring. I wouldn't really change it from the last game. I think, in fact, I wouldn't change it at all. It'd be the same setup with 3 at the back. The only thing I wasn't sure about is how long Colwell's out for. So I went for Sarr in there again, but if Colwell was available, I'd probably pick him. Despite how Sarr's done, he hasn't done bad, but I just love Colwell on the ball. I think he's great, and he always seems to win a tackle. I really rate him. And then so it'd obviously be Thomas and Toffolo as wing backs then, and I'd have Vallejo, O'Brien in midfield, and Sinani, Karoma, and Ward up front. But I wouldn't really change it too much. I think it worked well.
No, I'm going to jump in here, James. I've gone exactly the same as you, Joe. Don't change your winning team. Like you said, maybe Colwell, but for Sarr. But
because the other thing was Blackburn were not quite the same sort of long ball tactic, but they were trying to knock it long and over the top for Brett and Diaz, and I thought on the whole, we handled it quite well. A couple of occasions we didn't, but I think don't change a winning formula.
Yeah, and I think especially with Naby, who's been playing quite well this season and like has been unlucky to miss out sometimes. Yeah. But a lot of people talk about what think of his disasters, but he can get stuck in and like he likes dealing with the headers and a bit of roughhousing. So I think particularly for Luton, it'd be good keeping him in. What about you, James? Are you throwing in any surprises?
No, not really. I'm afraid. The only thing I was just not sure about is the injuries in midfield. So I was kind of thinking if Horgan, I don't know how bad the Vallejo injury is, so I think I'd be tempted to start with Vallejo if he's fit, or even, to be honest, Hogg if he was fit. But I think if we don't have either of them, then I'd actually be tempted to go for a start for Dwayne Holmes. I think he's been quite good when he's come on. He's looked up for it. He's looked sprightly. I think that the only concern about Scott High, I am a fan, but it's just he could become like a bit overrun physically. I mean, none of our midfielders are that massive, are they? But I think that it'd just be a little bit of a concern about that. The only other thing as well is I think I'd actually have been tempted to go for Campbell, but you just can't drop Ward when he's scored these goals and seems to have found this newfound confidence. So I think that I would be tempted to get Campbell on at some point just because of his energy and his ability to press their defenders. And I think that a real asset when you go away from a team that do play a sort of traditional sort of English style. You need battlers as well. So that's why I would be a big fan of Campbell, but there's no way that I'd drop Ward. So roundabout way of saying pretty much the same thing as you guys.
I know exactly what you mean about Campbell though. If Ward hadn't scored 2, I would have definitely had Campbell in for
just
I think got him written all over it.
Yeah, I think that Corbrand seems to see him as like an away forward. It's kind of like how Cowley used him as well, which I think is not a bad idea. But then also, like we said, if Ward needs to find his rhythm, don't he? And if he's scored 2, you're not going to drop him.
Yeah,
Saturday, are you?
Well, I don't know. It's your team, mate.
No, I'm not that type of gaffer. Not that type of gaffer.
No,
get an arm around him more style.
Cool. But I'm going to ask you how you see the game going and what your score prediction is to kind of finish off. Joe, you talked a little bit about how you think it's going to be a bit of a rough game, but how do you see the game going?
And I did mention I'd take a draw, but I'm actually going to revise that and be a bit more positive.
Nice.
Because we are 7th after 10 games, and they say after 10 games of the season it's a good indicator of where there's still plenty of time for that to change, but we're there for a reason, right? You don't get there accidentally after 10 games. So I'm gonna be positive. I'm gonna say it's gonna be a tight game, but that doesn't mean there won't be goals. I think we'll win 2-1 with quite a late winner again. But I think it'll have to be hard fought. And fingers crossed that Luton don't press us to hell like Forest and Swansea did successfully, and then we'll win 2-1.
Who do you think is going to get the goals? Yeah, that's right. I'm getting that specific.
I think Wardy's going to bag again. Wardy and Sinani. Let's go Sinani. He's going to finally do it.
Like it. James, any difference on that? How do you see the match going?
I'm so like enamored with Joe's prediction that like mine just seems so like negative and awful and just like I really like everything that Joe's just said there.
That was proper kiss the
it's proper got me into it. I'm really up for the game now.
You want to will it into existence?
I might cancel all my plans and go. Get me on that coach. No, I think like my heart probably agrees with Joe, but then my head maybe says like we'd probably take a 1-1, and I think that might be the way it happens really. I'm gonna have to say that Sinani's gonna score the goal because I'm just backing him to score now, and he's been one of my favourite players so far. So yeah, I think I will be backing him to score. But I think it will be a really tight game. I think that it's a really strange one because I think there's actually goals in both sides, but the way that Luton seem to play is quite, they do sort of keep it tight. So it's a really, really, really strange one. I think it really anything could happen really, So yeah, that's my prediction.
No, I like it. I like how you've gone from super positive to going a bit back to.
Let's be sensible now, guys.
Yeah.
I'm annoyed at myself, to be honest. I just can't pick the same thing as Joe. Yeah.
You were talking with the heart at the start, and then it's gone to the head at the end. We all do the same prediction sometimes. I think it depends what town turn up. Like, I know it's such an obvious, but we've seen they weren't great against Swansea, and then they do well against Blackburn, and obviously we saw what happened against Blackpool. They weren't great for the first half, and then got a goal and it turned on its head. I do think it's. I don't want to use the classic. It depends which way the first goal goes, but I can see it being scrappy. Like you say, it's going to be hard fought regardless. So I've gone for a 1-1 draw. And I actually see us maybe taking the league lead. I'm going to go for a piss. I'm going to go for a Sarr header from a corner or a set piece. I just think it's one of them. He actually scored in the last fixture, 1-1 draw when we played at Kenilworth Road. I agree with you, Joe. That's how I see the game going. Watch it, it'll be like 4-6 or something like that now. But I just kind of see it, and then I just think Luton. You hit the nail on the head, James. Everyone kind of underestimates them, and that they're exactly the type of team. Not that I'm making comparisons to them and us when we're in 16-17, but everyone's like, oh, but it's Huddersfield, we should be beating these, or it's Luton, we should be beating these. But they're a well-drilled team. I think Nathan Jones is a really good coach, and his setup with Luton, it just seems to work. So yeah, I think 1-1, and I'd take that. But who knows?
I was just going to say, Brady, I really liked what you said, like, we'll take the lead, but I think you actually said league. I just like the fact we'll win the league.
Yeah.
My prediction is we will take the league.
Well,
at Luton, it begins now.
The title charge begins now.
Yeah, it's going on.
We've been sleeping for too long.
But can I just say as well, like, I listened to an interview with the manager, Nathan Jones, and I was like really impressed with him, just like the way he spoke to me. Like, I thought I could, if I was any good at football, I'd think, oh yeah, like, I'd love to play for a manager like that. He's just bigging up his players. Like, I mean, I know they're off the back of like a 5-0 win, so anything he says is going to sound good in it and profound. But he was sort of saying I wouldn't take any other players over the ones I have here, and just sort of really, I don't know. He seems like a really intense guy, but like a really good manager, particularly for that type of, like, more like a community club. Maybe didn't quite fit the Stoke model, but fits better at like that kind of team where it's like backs against the wall, low wage built. Like, it just seems to really work for him. And they seemed to play well against Bournemouth from the highlights as well. And they're battering teams left, right, and centre. They've battered us last season as well. So yeah, I think they are a tough opponent, definitely. But we're going to win the league.
Yeah, exactly. We'll win the league. HMS Pistol League.
Yeah.
Well,
choo. More a train than a boat, but
I don't. Do you? What is the? Sorry, this
like a foghorn. Isn't it?
Foghorn, yeah. You can do a foghorn if you want. I think we should probably leave it there. But yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I think Luton's a good fit for manager and team. I think that's a good observation, James. And we're still working out with Corbyn. And like, again, I suppose we're rambling on. I'm rambling on a bit here, but I think these are the type of games where I still don't know how Town are going to approach it, and I think that says a lot about how obviously Nathan Jones left Luton, but he's come back, and like that in terms we're always talking football now about projects, and trust the process and all this, and the process for Nathan Jones and Luton's been in place for a long time. There was a gap where he went to Stoke, but there's still some of the same players, and they're a lot further along in the process than maybe we are. And I think with Corbyn, it's one of these games where obviously we're still in the project. So I don't really know. I think it's such an obvious thing to say, but how this game is going to go is how Huddersfield set up. We've seen they can do it well again away from home. We've seen they've been awful away from home. And I think that's where we're going to kind of really see how good, Luton's a tough place to go, and that's where you're going to see how good a manager Corbyn really is. So It's interesting. I think it'll be a hard fought game, like you say, lads.
And because he's such a young manager, I'm still willing to give him that bit of leeway. Like, we don't always know how Town are going to set up or what he's doing, but I think because we've got such a young talent, I mean, he does have like a lot of talent, you can tell. I'm willing to give him that little bit of leeway, and it's been a good start to the season, hasn't it? So
I think he's shown that he can adapt as well. Like, between the crowds coming in is like probably a big factor. He seems to like want to play much more of the attacking, free flowing style at home, and then away from home he seems to be the more sort of classic, sort of keep it tight type thing. And he does seem to be adaptable and have that sort of pragmatic element to him as well, which is good, which I think you do need, like, certainly like some element of that in the Championship. So I think it's promising signs.
Yeah. Well, like we say, lads, we've all predicted for tight games. I can't wait for it to be 6-4, like I said. it's just going to be one of them, isn't it? But yeah, no, thanks to Joe and James for coming on. Thanks to you guys all for listening, as always. We'll be back, to preview the next game. Cheers for listening. Catch you then.
Oh, what a night. Late in May in 2017, Schindler scored, it was a heaven dream. What a feeling, what a night. Oh, what a night. Wagner singing, we are Premier League. The greatest sight St. George's Square did see. What an evening, what a night. Oh, I got a funny feeling when he walks and a fence, and then the commentator yelled he takes that chance. Oh, what a night. Lost so safe and mesmerizing me. Low charge and flattened all Chelsea. Stamford Bridge, oh what a night. Whoa, I got a funny feeling when he walks and a fence, and then the commentator yelled he takes that chance. Oh,